Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 107th episode of the Trading Without Borders podcast. This is Omobi, your host, and today we will move into our discussions on the AfCFTA Women and Youth Protocol. I started that about 2 weeks ago. I just did introductions and I shared objectives and the scope last week. So today we will delve further and we're going to be looking at the provisions on inclusive socio-economic development. We will also take a look at participation in policy formulation and national AfCFTA implementation. That's what are the provisions that are allowed the state parties to include women in policy formulation concerning women and youth in trade, and also take a final look at access to finance for women and youth in trade. So we will look at those 3 provisions today, then we will continue in subsequent episode. Let's go right into today's episode. Okay, so looking at the first one, the inclusive socio-economic development provisions, that one, under that state parties undertake, that is where it's appropriate to facilitate and promote the empowerment and effective integration of women and youth in trade. That means state parties to put appropriate measures in place to ensure that women and youth can participate in trade. And moving on to the next one, they are to identify and eliminate legislations, regulations, and discriminatory practices against women and youth in trade. So whatever sort of, whether it's laws, regulations, policies that are in place that are discriminatory against women and youth in trade, they are to progressively eliminate that, remove that barrier. So they are also to promote quality education, information awareness programs on cross-border trade. That's awareness, advocacy, education on cross-border trade, how women and youth can participate in cross-border trade, and they are to enhance the capacity of women and youth in trade. That's enhance the productive capacity. So support women and youth in trade by building their capacity to be able to participate. And let's look at one more under this. They are also to strengthen and support associations of women and youth in trade responsible for coordinating and advocating trade issues. So they are to provide support to associations that are focused on women and youth in trade and helping them to coordinate and advocate trade issues. So by this, state parties are able to get women and youth to participate in cross-border trade by adopting these measures. And let's look at the next one. That one is under Article 9. It talks about participation in policy formulation and national AfCFTA implementation. What does that say? Okay, looking at one of it, so number one, that Article 9 one under in respect of policy formulation, implementation, and review related to the Protocol on Women and Youth in Trade, trade parties to put appropriate measures to promote and strengthen the full and active participation of women and youth in trade. Basically, that's for the benefit of everyone. It says that there are measures that the state parties should put in place to ensure that when it comes to policies concerning the participation of women and youth in trade, they must be involved in that arrangement, in formulating the policies concerning them, in implementing and in review of policies and programs related to that. So the stakeholders, that the women and youth, must be involved in this process. The next one also says that state parties have to establish and strengthen continuous dialogue with women and youth in trade and their associations, whether at national, regional, or continental levels, to help create an improved business environment for the successful and inclusive implementation of the AfCFTA. So continuous dialogue, that's what this provision is saying, dialogue with women and youth and their associations, either nationally within the state parties, regionally, or at the continental level. This is how when they dialogue, they are able to understand the challenges that women and youth in trade face concerning doing business, and also then put measures in place that can be able to do business easily or successfully. So another one also says, another provision under Article 9, that's 9.3, states that state parties shall ensure meaningful representation of women and youth in trade in existing bodies, including AfCFTA National Implementation Committee. So ensure there are representatives, not just ensure there are significant representatives of women and youth in various bodies, whether it's committees concerning women and youth in trade or in trade, whether it's AfCFTA National Implementation Committee. Ensure there are significant amount of them also within those committees to also they can represent or address their own issues. So finally, let's take a look at access to finance for women and youth in trade. So under the state parties they are to ensure, in accordance with their national laws and regulations, they should put in place measures that facilitate access to affordable financial instruments, services, and guarantees adapted to trading activities by women and youth in trade. This is to enable them to participate in import and export, and of course to protect them from risk related to trade. And they are to collaborate with financial services providers. So that means for the financial institutions, the state parties, that's the policymakers or the government bodies responsible, should work together with financial institutions to create or implement measures that can allow women and youth to be able to access finance, so they can also participate effectively in cross-border trade. So under Article 11B, it also says the state parties should incentivize the creation of funding schemes in sectors with high potential for growth and high-value sectors with low participation of women and youth in trade. So under this, it's basically saying that for sectors that you have low participation of women and youth in trade, state parties should create incentives that for funding schemes. That's incentives for schemes that will provide funds or grants for women, and so that they can also be able to participate in those sectors, or maybe in high value sectors or sectors that have high potential for growth, but we don't have a lot of women and youth in trade participating there because of restrictions, lack of finance, or lack of capacity, and all of that. So state parties are to create incentives that will allow them to participate. I'll just take one more. It also states that state parties should facilitate access to relevant knowledge and information on financial products and services and make it available to women and youth in trade. So under this, I'm sure there are quite a number of financial products and services that are targeted towards women and youth in trade, but they are not aware of it. So state parties are to create awareness, ensure that even if they are working with financial services providers or the ones that the state parties are creating them, so they should create awareness, bring about awareness, and ensure that women and youth know about it so that they can access these funding opportunities to be able to also help in carrying out their businesses. Okay, so this is where I'm going to wrap up for today. And as usual, the podcast is for educational purposes only. If you want tailored advice concerning how to access or expand your operations into African markets, please reach out to me. My name is Omobola Adekola on LinkedIn. And I've a few, some people have been reaching out to me in respect. I don't know if you'd like to support the Trading Without Borders podcast, you can also reach out to me. And until next week, I say to you, bye-bye.